Right, so picture this. It's July, you're sitting in the House of Commons, and Marie Tidball stands up with what she describes as a heavy, broken heart to vote against her own government. Not just any government, her government, the one she helped elect with that massive majority everyone thought was untouchable. And what's she voting against? Disability benefit cuts, which, small detail, Marie herself has a disability. She's got a congenital condition affecting all four limbs, so when the chancellor allegedly shouts at her and reduces her to tears for not understanding the policy, you've got to wonder, who exactly doesn't understand what here? Welcome back to UK Political Insight, where today we're diving into the absolute car crash that might just be the moment Keir Starmer's premiership started its slow-motion collapse. And trust me, this one's got everything. Backroom bullying, secret rebellions, bond market panic, and the kind of political miscalculation that makes you wonder if anyone in Downing Street has actually met a real person before. So let's rewind to March. Someone, and we'll get to the delicious mystery of who in a minute, leaks plans for 6 billion quid in welfare cuts to ITV News. 6 billion, with a B. The plan? Make it harder to qualify for personal independence payments, slash universal credit for people deemed unfit for work. Basically, squeeze 5 billion out of disabled people and call it efficiency. Now, this leak happens the day after a tense meeting where Liz Kendall, the Work and Pensions Secretary, is basically fighting the Treasury, who want to hoover up every spare penny before the June spending review. Some Whitehall insiders reckon the leak came from inside Number 10 itself, trying to bounce Kendall into compliance, which, if true, is the political equivalent of announcing someone's surprise party to force them to show up. Classy stuff. But here's where it gets properly messy. From the moment that story breaks, the narrative is dead in the water. It's not welfare reform anymore. It's cuts. Cold, hard, take money from disabled people cuts. And no amount of spin, no fancy press releases, no ministerial reassurances can claw that back. One former cabinet minister basically admits it. Once the story framed it as cuts, game over. You're now trying to explain why taking benefits from people who can't work is actually fine and good, which is roughly as easy as selling sandpaper swimming costumes. MPs start panicking. Constituency surgeries fill up with terrified constituents asking if they're about to lose their lifeline. And the government? Radio silence on the details. Because apparently nobody actually knew who would be affected. The figures kept changing. It's like they announced a massive policy overhaul and then forgot to do the maths homework. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, something extraordinary is brewing. Labor backbenchers, the supposedly loyal foot soldiers of that thumping majority, start organizing. But not like your standard socialist campaign group protests with everyone on WhatsApp arguing about Clause 4. No, this is sophisticated. Cell structure sophisticated. Secret lists sophisticated. 120 MPs sign a private letter to the chief whip, each one signing individually with no idea who else is on it. It's so secretive that to this day, nobody's seen the full list. It's like Labor's version of Fight Club, except the first rule is you don't talk about how you're about to absolutely destroy your own government's flagship policy. And here's the beautiful irony. The government thought the massive majority meant they could do whatever they wanted. Turns out, a massive majority also means you've got more people capable of thinking for themselves. Who knew? By late June, more than 100 MPs back a reasoned amendment trying to kill the welfare bill entirely. People who hadn't even flagged concerns suddenly pop up on the rebellion list. The whips are losing it. One admits that some rebels were people they had no idea were upset, because apparently the sophisticated political operation that won the election forgot to, talk to their own MPs. Now we get to Marie Tidball's moment. 1st of July. She stands in the Commons and delivers that speech. Heavy, broken heart. Voting against her government as a matter of conscience. She's been engaging with ministers for 3 months, she says. 3 months of being ignored. Then comes her meeting with Rachel Reeves. According to Labour sources, the chancellor doesn't just disagree with her, she shouts at her. accuses her of not understanding the policy. Marie ends up in tears, and she's not the only one. Multiple backbenchers apparently got the cry-in-your-office treatment from what labor insiders are calling bully boy Downing Street aides. The message? Your job isn't to have opinions. Your job is to amplify our messages, which is a fascinating interpretation of parliamentary democracy. I believe the technical term is representative government, not megaphone robots for number 10. The emotional weight of that speech, a disabled MP voting against disability cuts after being shouted at by the chancellor, sends shockwaves through the chamber. Sympathy surges through the chamber. Anxiety shoots through the labor front bench because they absolutely know they've lost this one. And sure enough, number 10 blinks. They cave. The deep cuts to personal independence payments? Shelved. A gutted version of the bill passes. But the real policy, the $5.5 billion in savings they were counting on, gone, vanished. Which means that gap needs filling somehow. And lo and behold, October's budget includes tax rises that are at least partly there to plug the hole left by caving to your own backbenchers. But the damage isn't just financial, it's psychological. Labor backbenchers just discovered they have power. They stood up, they organized, they won. That's intoxicating. One Whip estimates that 80% of Labor MPs without government jobs have now either rebelled or threatened to. 80%. That's not a rebellious fringe. That's basically the entire backbench testing the fences and finding them made of cardboard. And the bond markets? They notice too. Markets hate uncertainty. They really hate governments that can't control their own parties. So when labor folds on welfare, the markets take it as a signal that Starmer's authority is tissue paper thin, which then feeds into the economic chaos we saw later, which feeds into more political chaos, which feeds into more rebellion. It's a doom spiral with PowerPoint presentations. Around the cabinet table, senior figures start asking uncomfortable questions. Not publicly, obviously, nobody's resigning or anything dramatic, but privately, there's doubt. This was supposed to be the competent government, the serious adults in the room after the Tory circus, and they can't even communicate their own policy. They can't bring their own MPs along. They can't stop leaks. They can't negotiate with their backbenchers without reducing people to tears. One minister calls it a watershed moment, a complete reorientation where everyone realized the all-powerful leadership wasn't quite as all-powerful after all. Turns out, political capital is like crypto. Looks solid until everyone tries to cash out at once, then suddenly it's worth nothing and you're explaining to angry people why their investment disappeared. The communication failure here is genuinely baffling. Tom Baldwin, Starmer's biographer, points out this delicious irony. Starmer's mother and brother were both disabled. He could have framed this entire debate in deeply personal terms. Could have said, look, I want to get scarce resources to people like my mom who really need them, and that means reforming a system that's not working. Would it have been politically convenient? Sure, but it also would have been true and humanizing and might have actually worked. But Starmer refused. Didn't want to contaminate his family with grubby politics, didn't want to use their stories, which is honorable in a vacuum, but in politics, the vacuum doesn't exist. So instead of coming across as someone who understands disability issues from lived family experience, he came across as, in Baldwin's words, a bean counter who cared only about making big cuts without thinking about their impact. The very attempt to protect his family's integrity made him look like exactly the kind of shifty politician he spent his career insisting he isn't. That's not just bad politics, that's tragic. Then there's the negotiation shambles. Angela Rayner ends up brokering talks between select committee chairs, Morgan McSweeney, and the chief whip. But here's the kicker. Nobody from the Department of Work and Pensions is in the room. Nobody from the Treasury. The three people negotiating are the ones with zero policy expertise. They're going back and forth to Starmer, who then has to decide if he's overriding his own chancellor. And according to insiders, Reeves didn't even know these negotiations were happening until they were nearly done. Imagine that. The chancellor finds out her flagship savings plan is being negotiated away in meetings she's not invited to. If you wanted to design a system to create maximum resentment and minimal clarity, you'd struggle to beat this setup. It's like planning a wedding where the couple doesn't know the venue's been changed until the day before.
Margaret Hodge, the Labour peer who was Disabilities Minister under Blair, basically gives a masterclass in how this should have been done. In the early 2000s, she got disability benefit changes through with campaigner support and Labour backing after extensive consultation. Focused on carrots, not sticks. Set up a disability rights task force. Got everyone to accept that work was a right, not just benefits a burden. It took time. It took consultation. It took actually listening to disabled people and their advocates. Revolutionary concepts, apparently. But that groundwork meant when changes came, they had legitimacy. Compare that to Starmer's approach. Leak it to the media, keep the details vague, shout at anyone who disagrees, then wonder why everyone's furious. It's the difference between surgery and a chainsaw. Both can remove things, but only one leaves you with a patient who survives. 5 months later, here we are. Starmer's approval ratings are in the basement doing limbo with the heating pipes. The welfare revolt wasn't just